Hello and welcome back to the Foot Soldiers podcast. It's been several months, but we're back now. I'm Luke. I'm joined today by two new co-hosts. I have Chris here and Sean. We're going to be here talking today about the end of the last Cavalry season. From the last time we covered it, I think was the Dan Klomp game. So we'll go from there. Obviously, a lot to talk about with the playoff run and the final and the craziness that ensued there, and also the Marco Carducci thing. So I think we'll just get right into it. Chris, if you want to do a recap of how the season ended.
Well, tragically, heartbreaking, I guess would be the best way to sum it up. And I guess it was good for the league, the exposure that the bicycle kick or whatever they're calling it. That's been good. I think last time I saw it was in the billions of views, but yeah, a tragic, heartbreaking end to the season on a great playoff run would be the way I'd sum it up.
Yeah, definitely. And we all know what happened with the Stowe game in Ottawa. I was there. It was probably not a game that should have happened. That's another talking point there. But just to get to that point, I think speaks volumes about the chance that this team holds. Because if we go back to what we were saying around like May and June when we were drawing all the games, I don't think anyone thought that we'd come close to even making the final. And then we went on a great run to end the year. Obviously, beating Forge in the playoff game was huge. Then making the final. So yeah, Sean?
Yeah, I think I made the joke numerous times throughout the season that this isn't our year, but I've said that the last 2 years. And so, there was a point in the season kind of in that July, early August timeframe where the team just looked terrible. So I think while the season ended in heartbreak, I think the fact that we got there and we knocked out Forge along the way, I think it's a much more positive end to the season than say 2 years ago when we were knocked out by Forge in extra time. So I think it's kind of one of these things. And even though we were knocked out, I mean, it took a bicycle kick where Chris and I were sitting at the bar and everyone in the bar was just kind of like, did that just happen? And like maybe it was the 4 or 5 pints in us, but we were all kind of just in disbelief that just happened. And then it took an Eric Cobbs a clearance off the goal line, or an Eric Cobbs a chance cleared off the goal line to beat us. So I think fans can be pretty happy with how that ended, given how poor this club was in the middle of the season.
Yeah, definitely now with the benefit of hindsight, I can definitely look back and say that we were probably the second best team in the final, and that's fine. Like, Ottawa are just a very, very good team. They have some very good players, and you're right, it did take a spectacular bicycle kick goal to beat us, which I couldn't even, that was the one thing I could see from where I was standing, which was great. Just getting to see my hopes and dreams crushed right in front of me. But yeah, I don't think it's possible to overstate enough how much the midseason transfer window changed the course of this team. I think you can make an argument that Gauthier Antigny and Dan Klomp were our two best players in that run down the season. I don't know if anyone would agree or have pushback on that, but
I agree. And also, even we signed Salouf, who I think most people would agree was completely irrelevant in the team. So we even have off-season reinforcements that we didn't even need in the end. We have someone who it had no impact, but then we have 2 players who, again, probably drove the offense the most in Antigny, and then just like locked down the defense and scored, 97th minute winners in Dan Klomp. So
yeah, definitely. And I remember when we made the Gauthier Antigny signing, that seemed like a very important signing at a time when a lot of the forwards were struggling to get forward and score goals. And I think he provided a certain level of like pace that we didn't really see elsewhere, and especially going to next season, I think he's going to be a tremendously important player in our attacking line. Do you have any thoughts on this, Chris?
No, I would agree with you guys there. I think Dan shoring up that back line, and also the threat that I loved seeing him late in games kind of just be thrown. He was all over the place, whether he was in the opposing box trying to get on the end of a cross, or if he was playing midfield at some points. Like, he just has that license to roam wherever, and he creates so much, and he's so dependable. I'm excited to see what a full season with both those additions can do for us, because I agree. I think they were the spark that kind of pushed us. We had that big push at the end as a result of those additions.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good point there. Going into next season, I know like this is definitely the case for Dan Klomp when he joined the team from his team in Belgium, where he wasn't really playing and was sort of coming off like a several month stretch without really like playing properly. I'm not sure about Antigone, but I think he was in a somewhat similar situation. And now we get to go into next season. They're going to have a full preseason with the team. They'll hopefully be fully healthy and fully stretched out and ready to go, which I think is going to be something really exciting to see. If we consider that we only saw them kind of not at the peak of their powers last year, imagining what kind of hell will be rained on the other team's defenses next year. And so talking about the rest of the team now, that playoff run was obviously pretty good. The York game, I think it was a 4-0 win. That was a tremendous playoff victory. And Forge, we've now beaten Forge in 3 straight playoff games, which is always a great thing to see.
Clearly, we are the superior team, and if anyone questions that, they are flat out wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, just don't look at the league table, but definitely in the games.
Don't look at the number of trophies. It's all good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, just know that we're the better one. They haven't won a damn thing in the last couple of years.
Yeah, exactly.
And the rats are fleeing the sinking ship, if you will.
Yeah, and I think it's funny how much the tables have turned on the Cavalry Forge thing. 'Cause even like a couple of years ago, like we were the regular season team, and they were the ones that would show up in playoffs. But now they've won the regular season 2 years in a row and don't have anything to show for it. They've got knocked out by us both times, which feels good to feel good. But yeah, so looking into next season, we obviously have had quite a few number of surprises in terms of the roster. I think the biggest surprise for most people was Marco Carducci leaving, which perhaps that part is not as surprising as the fact that he signed for the Halifax Wanderers. So I just wanted to know what either of you make of that one.
Yeah, I think when I first saw the news, I was a little surprised. And I was kind of waiting for more information to come out before I kind of gave the chance for myself to kind of get the full picture before I kind of decided how I felt about it. And when it came out that it was Halifax, I was pretty shocked. To be honest, I was not expecting him to sign with another CPL team. I kind of thought, he had his run in the CPL, and maybe it was a chance for him to go try win somewhere else in another league, or maybe even get paid a bit more and secure his future financially that way. So when it was Halifax, like my initial reaction was a little bit betrayed, if I'm being honest. I didn't want him to sign with another CPL team. Having said that, of all the other CPL teams for him to sign, Halifax feels the least traitor or traitorous or whatever. So that's, but I still don't want to see him play for another CPL team. That's pretty much how, even having had some time, how I feel about that whole signing.
Yeah, like I heard probably rumblings 18 months ago that when he was going to be done his contract, he was looking to try a new challenge, and he wanted to try Europe. And it was that would have been a bummer, but like I think everyone would get it. He's been here 8 years. He showed up when he was 21 when he signed for Foothills. So like I get that if you've been here for 8 years and you basically have done everything you can, give it a shot. I remember thinking like at the time, like, well, how much better are you going to get elsewhere? Like, you have an Italian passport, so that should get you some doors. But like, even if you were to look at Italy or something like that, like what is comparable to CPL Series C, right? Like that's where a couple guys like Ongaro played. Like, is that really worth upending a pretty good gig here? And it sounds like he tested the waters and kind of realized that there's not actually much better for him. So maybe he could have got more money, maybe he could have gotten to a nice league in Europe, but like he wouldn't have played. It sounds like from what he said in his interviews. And so in my opinion, this is a step back for him. Like he's going from one of the top teams in the league to a team that, you get good crowds, but like realistically they're nobodies. on the pitch, right? Like they're barely a playoff team. They choke every time in the playoffs. They brought in a really good high profile coach, but in 7 years they haven't done a damn thing. And so maybe it's a challenge to take that club from pretenders to contenders, and maybe that's kind of part of the allure. But like, it's kind of like the Zator situation where you think he's leaving for bigger and better things, but the move ends up being like horribly underwhelming. Like Chris said, like it feels like he's a bit of a traitor. Of all the CPL clubs, Halifax is probably the one where you're like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like it's not Forge, it's not Ottawa, it's not Pacific, but like I think this is a terrible move for him. But I mean, if he wants playing time and a nice chunk of change, it's probably okay for him.
Yeah, I think I agree with most things you guys said there. I think like we've all heard like rumblings over most of the time it's been here that he was trying to gun for a higher like level league, which I think you're right, Sean. That's not going to be much at this stage of his career that he's going to find, even with that Italian passport. But yeah, it was just extremely shocking and jarring that one morning waking up and seeing Marco Carducci wearing a Halifax Wanderers jersey on my Instagram feed. And just on a personal level, I'm not too happy because I had a bet with one of my friends that he wouldn't sign in the CPL elsewhere. So Marco's cost me a bit of money on that one. But it will be.
I'm sure he's crushed. He's crushed. He owes you money. I guarantee.
Yeah. That's like a $10 bet. That it's the pride that hurts more than anything. But yeah, it'll be very, very strange seeing Marco Carducci come back in a Halifax jersey. I think part of the thing that hurt the most for me was that quote about like, oh, I've had such hell playing in front of the kitchen. Well, now, buddy, you have to play in front of 200. So it'll be very interesting to see what kind of reaction he gets the first time he comes back to Spruce Meadows.
Yeah, like I don't think he's gonna be too jeered, at least to start, right? Because like, again, he was the face of the club. Like he's earned a little bit of respect in that regard, where yeah, okay, he left and we'll clap him and say like nice to see you again. But then I think like maybe once there's that first big challenge, or maybe he gets contact in the box or something like that, then I think you're going to start seeing especially the ultras behind the net start giving it to him. And they had some good songs for him while he was here, and I'm sure they'll have some changes to those songs a little bit. Not to call it what they are because we want it to be a surprise, but yeah, I think he's gonna get it. And then especially if we knock him out, like I don't think he's gonna want to do that walk back to the dressing room coming by our section. So that's gonna be pretty sweet if we knock him out.
Yeah, no, definitely. I am looking forward to the first Marco Carducci fuck up that leads to a goal, and we can do the Marco Carducci chant. That'll be pretty good. Chris, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be hard for me. I think, Sean, like you said initially, like I have to cheer him on. Like he won't get the full Marco Carducci chant, but like there'll be the polite, I think, clapping from me anyways. I mean, just the connection he has with the city and going back to even the PDL days. He's one of my guys, so it was especially heartbreaking to see him go to Halifax. And I think, how the reception he gets at the beginning of his first game, Sean, to your point, I think will be a lot different than the reception he hopefully gets at the end. Because, I think for me personally, I feel like he's earned at least when he comes in front of 200, the polite kind of clap. But ultimately, take the 3 points from Halifax and him, take away the clean sheet and send him off maybe with some jeering comments at the end of the game.
Yeah, well, the nice thing about this is that if we ever end up playing the Halifax Wanderers in a penalty shootout, we're just going to win 5-0. So that's going to be great. And on that point, I think the news in the Marco Carducci thing has been kind of dampened a little bit because this morning the club formally announced that we've signed Atletico Ottawa's Nathan Ingham, a CPL champion. He's been nominated for the Golden Glove 3 times. He, quite frankly, probably should have won it last year. He's going to be, in my opinion, that's an upgrade to have behind the sticks for Cavalry. So just wanted to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think for me, if it wasn't going to be Carducci, Ingham would be the goalkeeper of anybody else in the league. That's the one who I rate the highest. It also, to having some Foothills PDL days connection is also a nice bonus. And I just think he's really good in between the sticks. So I think, he gives us a good chance to get back to the final or chase trophies. And it's going to be an adjustment. When he got rid of his man bun, that was one of my favorite chants to sing to him. So it's a little weird for sure to be cheering for him, but I think it's like you said, Luke. I do feel it's a little bit of an upgrade in the position, and certainly when it comes to penalties in that too. So and it might be. I think one of the Luke, you've kind of talked about this in previous podcasts or episodes as well, is kind of the leadership thing. I think that'll be kind of a story that I watched throughout the season, is that Marco leading in that leadership role, who kind of steps up and leads the team, and then also who's the captain. And I know there's lots of opinions on that, so I think that'd be something interesting to watch with Marco's absence as well.
Yeah, so cool story, bro time. I have met Nathan Ingham once, and so we when Calgary Foothills did kind of like they used to have friendlies with FC Edmonton, and so a few of us were going up to go watch the game at Clark Stadium, and so we're sitting at the pub at the Toad and Turtle in Red Deer, getting stretching our legs and getting a pint and having some food and stuff, and I look over and like he hadn't been announced with Foothills yet, but I look over and it's Nathan Ingham, and I think it was kind of like from his side, he's probably like, oh, people know who I am, because like he was like a backup at FC Edmonton at the time, like he wasn't a big name, and I think all of us were like, what, like you're with the team? And so like he came over and he just kind of introduced themselves and really tried to like thank us for doing our thing, and so it's kind of cool to see like 8 years later him kind of suiting up and returning back to Calgary. And so like I still have 2019 Nathan Ingham stuck in my head, and he was not good when he first started in the CPL, but he's been so much better since. So I don't know if I necessarily see it as an upgrade outside of penalties, but if we are going to lose one of the best keepers in the league, I think Nathan Ingham is a pretty good replacement. And who knows, maybe I can get that 2019 Nathan Ingham out of my head and get more of the 2025 Ingham that can actually win games for us and maybe command the box a little bit better. I think he's got more height on Marco, so some of those Olympicos may go away in big moments. So I'm hoping he's around, and it sounds like he's around for the next 3 years, which is like a massive contract, I think, for this club. So having that locked down for the next 3 years, and then if Holiday signs and he can maybe be brought up to be the starter at the end of that contract, that would be amazing, and that's big piece of business, I think.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna kind of push back on that a little bit. I really do think that Nate Ingham is in my mind, a not insignificant upgrade. Like I get everyone loves Marco, and he's been a great goalie for us for a long time. But in the last few years, I really can't remember of a game where like he's single-handedly won it for us in the same way that I see Ingham doing that for Ottawa from time to time. And you could make the argument that Marco Carducci is a part of the reason why we lost the last two finals we lost, obviously with the Olympico in Hamilton 2 years ago, and then the rushing out in Ottawa. That's maybe a bit more contentious, but I'm certainly not saying any of this to shit on Marco. I still think he was like a good goalie, an above average CPL goalie for us for a long time. But I do wonder if he had kind of like stalled a little bit by not having the pressure for 3 years of never having a good backup. And I really do think that we could do some exciting stuff with having a different goalie in Nate Ingham. And you're right, it's a 3-year contract, which I think is fantastic. We don't have to worry about that position for a while. get Joe Holiday some minutes. And again, he's a Fiddles guy, which obviously you guys can talk a bit more about that. But moving on past the goalie situation, I'm just gonna get up the roster thing here. We have a few other players who are out of contract or in negotiations. Obviously, the big three are Kings, Shamit Shom, Fraser Aird, and Ali Musi. And right now, I'm kind of under the assumption that none of them are coming back, but it'll be interesting to see what happens with that.
Yeah, I think if there's a target out of the three, I think Shimmy Chom should be the one that they should target. Like when he was out in the middle of that season, that kind of corresponded with the poor run of form, and you just really noticed that the club improved once he got back in there. So, I think he's the guy we have to target, not just for the play on the pitch, but the sheer number of Bangladeshi followers that can come in and give everyone a lift and send their love and stuff like that. So
yeah, it's interesting because going into the off season, I'd kind of had my priority order would have been Fraser Aird would have been my top priority, and then Shamit Shom, and then Ali Musi. I think it's safe to say right now that Musi's gone. But the Fraser Aird thing, I thought he was one of our top three players last year. He was certainly one of our most consistent players. I know he's getting on a little bit, but we don't necessarily have a ready-made right back in the club already to go in there next year. So that's going to be maybe a bit of a tougher replacement. But yeah, I agree. Shamit Shom's also been tremendously important.
Yeah, I think we got to re-sign Aird too. I'm a big Michael Harms guy, but just based on that stint he had a couple of years ago when Aird was injured for those few games, I think Michael Harms is an absolute stud. But it's clear that Tommy just doesn't seem to trust him enough to give him the minutes, and thinks there's enough of a drop off from Aird, even to the point where I think Lang was playing right back for a little bit last year, wasn't he? So
yeah, he was.
Yeah. So, and I mean, I think Aird's, because he's getting up there in years too. I think he turns 31 this year. So, you give him a 1 or 2 year deal and kind of just see what level he can play at. And I think, I do think he's still a critical piece. I do think you brought up the Marco in the final, giving up that winning goal. That was Fraser Aird's man, and he got beat with a long diagonal ball. So he was caught out of position, and then Marco kind of half came and half didn't come, and so it's just kind of. I think you could also put a little bit of the blame on Fraser Aird as well. So, he had a few moments like that last year where it just seemed like he was a step off defensively. So, but I think offensively, he absolutely runs that right side. And, I think he's important to sign as well.
Yeah, I just will say quickly that where I was standing in the final, obviously in the snow, I really didn't really see what's happening there. I just saw Marco rush out when the goal ended, and I haven't been able to. I'm not going to watch that game back probably for the rest of my life. So I'll defer to you on that one, Sean.
Just you just had your shirt off the whole time, eh?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Just maybe you were blind. Maybe you was blinded by your body there.
It's. I find it interesting that. So I agree with you guys. Sean, Shom, Aird, and then Musi would be my priority of those threes. I find it interesting that, for somebody who has so much skill in Musi, that, between the three of us, he's the lowest priority of those three players. And it's kind of interesting because he's scored a lot of beautiful goals, a lot of bangers, and he's contributed, but I think he's also maybe a bit inconsistent. And I think, maybe it's you don't feel the impact of losing a player like Musi necessarily as much as you would a Shom or even an Aird. And those are famous last words that certainly could come back to bite me in the butt as he, puts a couple free kicks in against Ingham here next year, or unless he comes back. I certainly wouldn't. I would want him on my team, but as far as a priority, he's three for me. And I just think it's an interesting observation that all three of us both kind of have him ranked third for a player who scored. I don't know, maybe 30 goals for Calgary, or maybe that's too high. Yeah, a lot of goals for Calgary, anyways.
Yeah, I think most people I talk to, they like Moosey and they like everything he's about when he's on. But the problem is like half the time he's not on, and so like you don't know. You can usually tell within the first 10 minutes like which Moosey you're going to get. You're either going to get the guy who's running at defenses and trying to take on players one-on-one and trying things offensively, or you're going to get the person who's on the periphery and not really into the game, and he might be trying to go at players one-on-one, but then he just takes one too many touches and loses it into a defender, and everyone in the stands is going like, oh, why'd you do that? So I think it's more the inconsistency that people are probably like, okay, like we know what his ceiling is, and everyone knows that like if he was more consistent he'd be at a better level, but you just never know which player you're going to get. And I remember like, what game was it where he got the red card after the final whistle? Maybe it was against York. I think there was a 1-0 game we lost.
I think that was the Ottawa, either the Ottawa game or the York game.
Okay, yeah, but there was one where he got a red after the game, and everyone was like stoked that he was out of the lineup for 3 games. And then once he came back from that red card, he was like back to his old, prolific self. But the fact that we're all kind of sitting here, like Chris said, like he's not our top priority, and I don't think anyone's super disappointed to see him go. Like yeah, you wouldn't mind having him on your team, but like maybe it's worth. I think Intigne is a far better option, even though he's a left winger. But I would love to see Intigne take over that spot as like the real engine in the offense.
Yeah, so I think where I'm at with the Moosey thing is kind of to go off of what you were saying there. Like he's definitely, like when he's on, like he's the best player in the league, and we see that. Like one of my all-time favorite games was the game last year in Ottawa. I think it was it was a thunderstorm delay, and then Moosey was injured. He came back, he got subbed on and scored a brace to win us the game, and that was great. And I think the thing that frustrates me and a lot of other fans is that we know that he can do that, but it just feels like a lot of the time he doesn't want to. He just doesn't do it. And I think where I'm at with this now is he's 30 today as we record this. Happy birthday, Ali Moosey. So this is kind of just the player he is. So if you give him a big contract now, like you're just buying into that and taking that like for what it is. And I think he would have certainly commanded a lot of money, like if not the highest paid player, like top 3 highest paid players on the team. And I just think that where we're at now, I think we can spend that money on a lot of better options. We could do a lot more interesting things with it. Which if we assume that Moosey and then one of Aird or Shome is gone, like that's a lot of money coming off the books that we can do a lot of fun stuff with, I think. Going into the offseason. And just to your point, Chris, I have his all-time Calgary stats up here. If this is the end, he'll end his Calgary career with 122 goals, 122 appearances, 31 goals, and 25 assists, which is not a bad record. And yeah, so just going off of that, another big departure from the club was Mikhail Gerasimenkov, who was obviously just on loan from the Vancouver Whitecaps, but a lot of people kind of thought that he might have been released, but instead he got signed up by the first team. So that's going to be a big loss, I think, on our left side there.
Yeah, what a loss. Like, I think everyone's stoked for him for getting that first team deal. And I mean, there's always a shot we get him back on loan because like at left back, he's going to be behind Atakubi and the 19-year-old. Like if they have another 20-year-old or 19-year-old, Tate Johnson, that's what I'm thinking of. So he'll be behind those two in the pecking order. So, I mean, he's only 20. So, if they want him to get more minutes, maybe it's in a Karifa type of situation where they try and get, it's better for him to play another year at CPL than sit on the bench behind those two. So I'm kind of holding out hope that we get him back on loan, but yeah, huge loss otherwise.
Yeah. Speaking of loans too, what do you guys expect from Jay Herdman coming back from loan next year?
A lot of drone jokes.
Yeah, you know, it's like I completely forgot he played for us, to be honest. I just saw him at the final. Like I didn't realize he was under contract for next year. So
Yeah, when he came on loan initially, like he was exciting to watch, and when we signed him that last off season, I was like really excited about that. I was like, oh, we're gonna have a full year of Jay Herdman, but I don't know, for whatever reason. And the thing too, I think it's easy as fans sometimes to forget is, these players all have personal lives and there's different situations going on off the field or with the club or whatever the case is. So yeah, I'm hoping it's something like that, and we get the Jay Herdman that we saw for the last half of last season, and not the Jay Herdman that started last season.
Yeah, I mean the mind also goes back to that night in Mexico, Chris, which you and I were obviously at. Like, cause he got the assist in the winning goal in the first leg, and he's playing very well, and then he just lost his head for a second, and arguably lost us that game. I'm certainly not saying that was the reason we lost, but it obviously didn't help to give away a penalty and then lose one of our players. And I really do wonder like how much that could have mentally affected him.
Yeah, that's a good point, Luke, because he was devastated too. You could kind of, like, where we were sitting in Mexico City, the Cavs went down into the locker room kind of in front of our section, and he looked devastated. And you even saw players kind of consoling him and trying their best to kind of lift up the spirit and say, don't worry, we got this. Again, from what I can see in the seats, I'm probably making a little bit of assumptions on my part here, but I wonder too, Luke, that's a good point. I've kind of forgotten about that. So I don't know, maybe, time helps heal that in a fresh new season. Because if he can be the impact player that he was in the playoffs, then that we saw, then that'd be a welcome.
Maybe he doesn't have the same pressure too with Intigne in the lineup. Like he can maybe he can work his way back in instead of being the starter and having all that pressure on his shoulders to really run down that left side. So maybe that, and then like just an off season to get your head sorted and recover from the poor year and try again, and hopefully we get the Jay Herdman from 2024 and not the Jay Herdman from 2025.
Yeah, the only thing that's kind of worrying about this, because obviously, like, we sent him on loan mid-season to Vancouver FC. I'm just looking at this now. He only had 2 appearances for Vancouver FC. And I'm not gonna say, like, I'm not gonna lie. I don't spend my time watching Vancouver FC games, but that's a little bit concerning if he can't get into the team for the worst team in the league. I don't know if he was injured or what, but I'd like to know what was going on there.
Well, in his defense, they're the best last place team in the world.
Oh,
so maybe the standard's a little bit higher than we think. So
yeah, definitely. But
it's exciting to have announcements though, and I think I was talking to you guys on the weekend that I'm a little bummed that we have to wait until April for Calvary games, and that we don't have this February CONCACAF run to kind of ease us back in, because the off season feels so long without the CONCACAF games. So it was nice to get some news this morning, and I expect maybe on that front the news kind of more signings get announced and those things, and we can kind of slowly dip our feet back in and get excited for another Calvary season.
Yeah, it's such a painfully long off season. It's just the reality of playing soccer in this country. But like I was saying, like, I'm almost thinking of going to that Vancouver FC Cruz Azul game just to get a bit of Champions League in my life. I would obviously be the biggest Cruz Azul fan you've ever met for one day, but like that might be a fun little thing to do. But yeah, it's a long few months until the Calvary are back. But yeah, hopefully we'll get some more signings and some more news on what the team's gonna look like next year, and hopefully we can try and make the final for the 4th year in a row. So, are there any closing thoughts here before we try and wrap this up?
No, good to be back and talk Calvary, and thanks for organizing this. And I'm sure people will be excited to have a surprise pod drop. So that should be good.
I'm just going to preemptively say that 2026 isn't our year, given my track record of saying that the last 3 years and having it be our years. So it's not Cavalry's year. We're going to be a terrible team. We're going to be middling. We're going to come in 4th place, and we're going to lose out in that 2 versus 3-4. And if I'm proven wrong, then you guys can come back at me here.
There you go. Yeah, some good audio clips for the future. So yeah, thanks so much all for listening and bearing with us during our hiatus. But we should be back now. We should be having some more episodes coming out in the near future. So thank you.